Hello, family in Christ. I wanted to go live for a moment, and I was very excited earlier. Um, I ran into some some rain clouds, as you call it, and some bad smelling cologne. But just awful, 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 awful. So and it just felt like something just was pulling the energy, trying to snatch the very life of Christ out of me. I had wanted to talk about some things, and I just wanted to first let you know that it's not as it appears. Nothing is as it appears. And when things are not as it appears, help me, Lord Jesus. That can mean, two things, from God's, perspective. Um, from our perspective, I wanted to say that when things are not as it appears. In my life, a lot of people, they saw me as a person, who would stand in prayer. They saw me as a person that, that, I, had, favor with God, and I still do. But in a sense that, while praying, prayers will be answered. And, I still do. I just have to push to pray. I just have to push. I have to pray for God's glory. I have to pray and ask God for grace to do it. Today, is like a day where, hold on, let me do like this. I had to block a viewer. So, excuse me. Uh, today has been like another day where, I just want to tell you guys about my experiences. I want to talk about my experiences. And it's going to be an experience that started, probably about 17 years ago, 18 or 19. The experience goes back, and we all have our experience when we experience God, where we're very, conscious of the Lord. And we acknowledge the Lord, acknowledging God's presence, acknowledging that, Jesus Christ, what I'm saying, is, someone that is talked about to have saved, your souls, just by believing in him and, accepting him in your life. Because, growing up, I did not understand as I was in church as a child with my mother, and we would go to church, on holidays, and, and I just remember me and my sister being in church, and, I remember us being with my mother, and my mom, she even had to pinch me one time in church because I was a little, I'm not going to tell you what I did, but I was just not, what I'm saying, just doing something. Me and my sister were, we was very, very, very goofy, silly at the time, and we should have been, but we didn't understand and know what was going on in church. So, anyways, I have, at one point in my life as a teenager, I started, just having a longing, to talk to God, to know Him. I had started, as a little girl, seeing things, spiritually, and I would like have visions of things like things crawling across my pillow. It wasn't a good thing, you know what I'm saying? I would have a dream. I had visions, and I remember, something, like a worm, or thick worm or something. It was a lot of them going across my pillow. It was dark, and I had woke up, and I was looking at the pillow, and I saw like something thick going across the pillow, just a bunch of it. I was like, I don't remember, what I'm saying, what I did after that. But, I remember a time when my mom put me in a tub and I went blind. She left the water running, and they was having a party on the outside. It was adults on the outside, but I went blind for a moment while I was in the tub. I don't know why I went blind, but I was blind for a moment while I was sitting in the tub, and I was probably around 9 or 10 or something like that. And Yeah, I think I was around 9 or 10, somewhere up in there, but I went blind, and the water was running. So I reached out to try to, see if I can touch the faucet handles to turn off the water. And, um, as I was reaching my hand, my eyesight, just came back all of a sudden, and I saw a big black spider. I had almost touched it. It would have probably bit me. And I jumped out the tub. That's all I remember. I don't much remember everything that happened, but I just remember being in a tub and just, seeing things. I would, see things as a child. I would have all kind of crazy dreams, and my dreams would consist of me falling from the sky. Every time I have a dream, have any of you ever had a dream where you are just falling from the sky? I had a dream every single, I'm talking about, like, I think every day, that I would just be falling from the sky. And I don't even know why I would be having these dreams. I didn't never tell my mom about it. My mom never knew that I would have dreams falling from the sky. I would have these weird dreams falling from the sky. I would have dreams of, you know, one time I had a dream that, I was like I guess I was like a teenager, and I had a boyfriend, and I was always at the boyfriend's house. And I was at the boyfriend's house, and we would just be sitting on the bed or whatever. But and his mom, I heard his mom talking to his dad. I was at the boyfriend's house. I heard the mother talking to I'm just talking about dreams, hi everyone. I'm talking about dreams, I'm saying visions, things that you're seeing in the spiritual realm, from a childhood, just, being paralyzed by demons. As I would try to wake up or get up out of the bed, and I couldn't move. And I would try to move and get out of the bed. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. I couldn't do anything. I was paralyzed by demons as a child, as a teenager, and later on in life, I guess, I'm trying to remember at what point in my life did I stop, being paralyzed by demons. But I had my daughter start being paralyzed by demons. I had a daughter being paralyzed by demons, and she, and I just want to go back to that other dream too. I want to talk about, but I just want to tell you about something that was just very awesome and amazing. Something very awesome and something that was very amazing that happened to my daughter and me. This is when I started, praying. I was praying. I was seeking God, and and God had got me off a sick bed. I had started reading these prayers right here. Every day I would read through this whole book. Every single day I would read all of these prayers in this book. Every single prayer in this book right here. And and let me just see how many pages is this right here. But you see 108 pages. Prayers that rout demons. I would read this book by John Eckhart. I read this book every single day. And this is not the book, because the devil at one point in my life made me throw away a copy I had like this, and other books I had bought. from other authors that I would read just to strengthen my spirit man, because your spirit man needs to be strengthened. Your spirit man is strengthened by reading the Bible. And that's what the devil trying to kill me right now. The devil don't want me to read my Bible. I'm telling you the truth. I have to tell you the truth about what's going on. Things are not as they appear. I went from praying all day, every day. I mean, I would pray every single day, all day long. My children, I learned how to, by going to this here man website, his Facebook page, and he will have the prayers, and he still do, John Eckhart on Facebook. He has all kinds of prayers all the time, whatever season, I'm saying, however the Lord lead him to do it, different prayers, decrees. I would go there and get decrees off of his page. And this was like in 20, I guess around 2011, 20, 12, something like that. But I got this book in like 2008 or 2009. Um, yeah, by 2008 or 2009. And I started reading it. A guy named Reginald told me to order this book. It was my first, book, Christian book, that I had never bought a Christian book. I had a Bible. I had a Bible, but I didn't have a Christian book that I ever bought. I purchased this Christian book because the pastor who was praying with me online, he told me to get this book. So I got this book, and I would pray, and I had just, turned from some things. I had just turned from a lot of stuff. I stopped going out. I stopped going out. Basically had, already had literally stopped going out. But every now and then I would probably, if somebody wanted me to go out to the club with them, I would go, like a nurse that I met, the doctor's office, and have a few drinks. But I stopped going out. I was divorced, and I stopped dating men. I stopped dating. I'm saying, I was, when I got divorced, I dated men. I'm saying, just a few of them, but it was very shameful to be fornicating. I'm saying. So, and God has spoke to me through His Word, and I honestly thought that the Lord was speaking to me to give my sister a word. I was like, my sister fornicated. This for her, what I'm saying? But it was for me. He was talking directly to me, because from time to time, what I'm saying, my ex-husband, I would ask him for money that I need, what I'm saying, for our bills. And, and I was actually awarded alimony and stuff, but child support, but he never did pay me back the stuff that he should have been paying me. So, and I wasn't the one that was petty to try to, take him back to court or, enforce it. But, he was very low down and dirty, because he would be like, if you let me come over tonight, he was very low down and night. He was not, all that good of a man. What I'm saying? He really wasn't. He was not my husband. But I'm just trying to tell you this for a reason. But I stopped that, and the Lord spoke to me about him. It's like, that's not your husband anymore. You're fornicating. You are committing sins. I don't know if you got any friends or anyone that is divorced and they still fool around with their ex. Don't do it. It's sin. Your temple is the temple of the Holy Ghost. All about some dreams. At first, I wanted to talk to you about Balaam and Balak, about, things that I've experienced, and the experience in my life has literally been, it's been a nightmare, what I'm saying? But it's been also awesome and wonderful because of the sweetness of God. I just can tell you that, I just want to just tell you real fast that, when I experience God, and you all should listen to this, when I, please have an ear to hear, I'm just trying to tell you about something that is so sweet and so kind, and about a time in my life. It was just, you would just have thought that, you are already in, that heavenly place where eyes have not seen or ears have not heard, the things that God have for us. His presence, that David talks about, King David from the Bible. I always would wonder, what is David? Why does David, because he would be like, Lord, just don't take your presence away from me. When God, killed his unborn, killed his son after he had a son with I forgot the lady's name. I don't know if it was, I don't know, I forgot her name, but he had a relationship with a lady who was married to a man that he sent back out into war to get killed, because he impregnated the wife, and God had to punish him and sent the prophet Nathan to prophesy to him about it. So, because he shed blood to cover up the sin, you know, and God, you're not supposed to kill, but either way, the thing about it is that God took away that son, that newborn baby, and David fasted until God took that baby away. He fasted, hoped that the Lord would be good to him and not kill the baby and let the baby live. But the baby was born out of, sin, fornication, and then, murder, what I'm saying? And you've got to remember that, things are passed on from generation to generation. David allowed a murderous spirit to come in, and a spirit of fornication, lust, what I'm saying, that he had. And, those spirits will go down, what I'm saying, the generation of those spirits will follow you. They'll follow your generation. But the thing about it is that God had to pass judgment. No sin goes unpunished. The Lord had to pass judgment on David, and he took away his son. He didn't kill David. He spared his life, because the wages of sin is that he spared his life. But the whole thing about it is that David, he fasted, he cried and fasted, and pleaded with the Lord, and it was just very sad, if you could just go into the story, and very touching. And David himself, when the son died, his servants were scared to tell him. They even tried to get him to stop fasting. They wanted him to eat something, this and that, and then when David knew that the son was dead because of something that went on with the servants, and but he asked them, is he dead? And once they said yes, he got up and went, right to worship God. He went right into the temple to worship God. He wasn't mad at the Lord. I love this about David. This is the most precious thing you could ever do, because even I myself, I've gotten mad at times. I have gotten mad. I'm like, this is too much. I literally would get mad and be like, it's too much. I quit. I give up. And when the devil come in to kill you, and I'm telling you, they come in like a mighty force and will knock you down. Okay, I done got knocked down a few times. I done got overtaken and overpowered by demons, and I'm saying, what is this, Jesus? Because Jesus said that, he disarmed, the principalities. He disarmed their powers. He disarmed rulers. And I'm like, you don't have no power over me. But at the time the devil had tricked me, demons came in by, witchcraft operating in lust. They had first, witchcraft operating in confusion. They broke into my church, by step. They came in on me as I was having fellowship with God. They were very sneaky demons. They moved in all around me, and they lived next door, and they it was awful. Them and their kingdom, they was all around us. You know what I'm saying? They really was, me and my children, to take us down. These were principalities. These were